Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Revive Stories. We're so excited for just another inspirational conversation with an amazing person. Today, we're joined by Tash, who's involved in our church at Revive Church. She's a fantastic lady. She's a part of the ministry, our production ministry as well, and we're excited to hear a little bit more about her story. So, Tash, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
Come on, we're gonna have a lot of fun. And for anybody
Yep.
that's maybe watching Revive Stories for the first time, this is really just a place where we love to find out the unique experiences and stories of some of the people in our church about their journey with Christ and getting to know Jesus. We believe that our stories are powerful, and we believe that there is always something to learn from somebody else's story. So, like is our custom, I'd love to start off by just finding a little bit more about your childhood, Tash, and your upbringing. Where'd you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
Okay, so once again, thanks for having me, and it's just a pleasure to share a story with everybody.
Yeah.
So I was born in Durban. Um, I was born in Durban. My parents decided to move to Joburg when I was 4 years old. So even though I was born in Durban, but I grew up in Johannesburg. So that's pretty much most of what I would remember, but very fond memories still of Durban, where I was born in,
Awesome.
predominantly Indian area. And childhood growing up was very simple, actually, if I think about things. Grew up in a flat when you moved to Johannesburg. Lots of children, so life consisted about going to school, coming home and playing, being with friends, interacting with everybody, and very small community back
Yeah.
then. But I think now it's grown up a bit more. And and that's pretty much also where I started going to church as well from a little girl. From then,
Okay. So getting to know God and your journey with Christ, that started from when you were quite young. So you'd say that you grew. Was it like a Christian? Did you guys have a Christian family growing up?
no, so we never had a Christian family growing up. I was born a Hindu, so we did everything in the Hindu rites, the Hindu way. Up
Interesting.
until I was about 12 years old, it actually started with my dad, who was very ill. He had something called psoriasis, and over the years, it just progressed. It got worse, 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 and it never got better. But being being amongst Hindu people and family, that's basically what it is. But not only Hindu, just also a lot of other religions around us. A lot of people were praying for my dad in every way, and he also was reaching out in every other way. But we also had Christian people that came along our way and would encourage my dad, to either just come to church or even just once he had a Bible and someone gave him a Bible, and one night he just couldn't bear the pain, and he opened the book and he did that thing of, drop your finger and let's see what the verse. And funny enough, for him, that's actually been his story actually becomes our story or my story, because that's how we started going to church. Because that night, every verse he read was about Jesus healing the sick. And he said,
Wow.
you do that, I'm going to church. And the first time it happened, the second time, and it must have happened about, I think, 4 or 5 times. And
Wow.
that's actually how he started going to church. And we weren't very ritualistic in our Hindu upbringing, but we did the basics that we would do.
Yes.
And so my dad started going to church, and then okay, my mom either sent me along or I chose to go along. I don't know, but my clear remembrance is I must have been about 12 years old going,
Yes.
and I just loved it. Even though we were Hindus and we did whatever we needed to do and we did things, but I just loved it. It just got to me going to church. I was back then, if I could say, very religiously going to church every Sunday.
Yes.
That's what it was. So for a very long time, it was just myself and my dad going to church,
Wow.
and just believe in and accept. So I would say, like, I accepted Jesus when I was all of 12 years old. But then I knew the
Wow.
thing that was for me, was
Wow.
in my life at that age. So I just plugged in, just just kept going to church, going to Sunday school. Everything that revolved around being at church, I just, at that age, just took it with both hands and held on to it and said,
Wow.
this is where I want to be.
That's
So that was,
incredible. If I could
that's it.
ask, sorry to interrupt you, Tash, if I could ask maybe,
Mhm.
um, making that, I don't want to call it a jump, but to being raised up, one way in a Hindu household and then moving over to Christianity, and you said that it started just you and your dad. Were there any like maybe tensions or challenges
Yes.
that arose from that, from like maybe people or friends or family members that couldn't quite maybe understand? Because that'd be quite a big change.
It is. And I mean, it's not something that has. It's currently. It is still. It is
Yes.
really. But in the beginning, it was a big change. Family back then never understood why we were doing what we were doing, because yes, we grew up in that way. It was something we did. We weren't born into it. So people never really, the family, bigger family, never really understood why we were doing that, but what we
Mm.
felt. um, and it took a long time even for my mom to start coming, because we moved into a new place, and then it was my grand that said, no, I think you need to follow that. My dad's going to church, she just also needs to follow. So we had to give up. We had like a lamp that we gave to the temple. We gave,
Mm.
so a lot of tensions, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is still, yes, to be honest. It's a
Wow.
journey. It never ends, because when you're dealing with people that think they, I wouldn't say equal to God, but don't know what we know, it is
Yes.
different. It's a revelation. It's a revelation for us, or revelation for me, that I would always look back and say I'm grateful for,
Wow.
because it was an experience. Look, and the experience obviously of my dad being healed in that moment
Mm.
was miraculous. And one
That's
would think it was
incredible.
miraculous, it'll be okay. But I do think there is a lot of questions as to why we did what we did. I mean,
Yes.
my dad had a lot of friends who was Muslim in that time, and he still does. And they were praying for him, and he would fast during the fasting time, and during the Hindu. Everything, let's just say, everything we did then never brought the results and the peace and the healing that Jesus brought then to
Sure.
us. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, there is still.
That's fantastic, Tash. Geez, thank you so much for sharing that. That's really interesting to hear from that perspective. And yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about some of those kind of early Christian experiences for yourself, and what maybe you noticed about yourself that was beginning to change, or what were some of the things that maybe shifted in your life. Obviously, you've mentioned there that you kind of got saved, or you accepted Jesus at 12 years old. I'm sure there was a progression from then, as you started, getting involved in a church or getting to know Jesus better.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, I mean, being at that age, and I would be honest, it's I would like to say it's a journey. What you've known then, you do wish you knew now.
Yes,
What you know now, you wish you knew then, back in the.
yes, yes.
But I always felt there was a special calling, a special thing upon my life, because in the Bible it says we are set apart, we are chosen generation, and
Mm,
not to be boastful in that way. But I do believe that has always been on my life, where God has always separated me from those things, I would say, where he's
yeah.
placed me in a place of favor, I would say, which is what I've seen then. And through the faith and growing, and just hanging on to it. I mean, it was the best thing. Just, you were with people. I felt the relationship with Jesus was alive. I felt relating to God, or in what we knew then, what a God is, and what we know now. The relationship, the reality in what I
Mm,
is now, and to those early stages, is what I felt that somehow, and nobody coaxed me in that way. It was just like, this is what I want. This is where I want to be. I don't know where it came from. I don't know how, but
wow.
that's what it was. And ever since that, I would always know that, not something, if I could say something special, but something was upon my life for that.
Yes. Yes.
It was going to church. I loved it. Going to church, getting into in Sunday school, learning, just learning His word, and a lot of my things of what I know now of the Bible is what I learned in those early days.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
You speak with great clarity about calling and just kind of sensing, something for your life. And I love that. And I can resonate with that as well. And it's so hard to almost articulate or explain when you're in that moment and you're not yet sure what that looks like. Maybe I could ask a question in terms of, let's say there's somebody else, a young girl or guy who also senses calling, senses that there's more, but maybe even had to navigate some of the same challenges that you had to kind of go through and almost, do things that are different to what a lot of friends or family or people could even understand in terms of, maybe pulling away from one thing because you're really sensing something from God or from Jesus. If you had like even just one piece of advice for somebody who had to maybe go through or who has to go through something that you went through, what would you do if you could just narrow it down maybe to one or two things?
it the only thing I can say is you have to walk away. You got to like literally turn and walk away. And to be honest, it is sometimes severing the relationship, but following Jesus. It's not easy.
Mm,
The Bible is
mm,
very clear on that. And to an extent that you follow, if you are not a Christian and you haven't experienced what I've experienced, or anybody's experienced, you wouldn't understand the value that you would think in walking away.
yeah.
You got to walk away and you got to leave the rest in God's hands. Let Him
Yeah.
bring that restoration. Let Him bring that revelation to them. But it's about choosing Jesus. Pick up your cross and walk. It's not easy. It's
Wow.
not, and I might have faced it back then in a very religious setting, because even when we became Christians, my dad and I started going, we still had a lot of Hindu family around us that would still want to interact with and then invite us to their prayers that we do, and it was a way of, you don't want to sever the relationship, but there comes a point where you have to say, sorry, I won't be there anymore for that. Doesn't mean I can't be there for you, but it's got because you don't want to mix the two as well, making you think that it's okay for me to believe in this but still partake in that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
You have to at some stage, okay, I'm tapping out now. You want
Yeah.
to. I'll come maybe at a later stage in the day, but I'm not coming for that kind of thing, because a lot of friends and family would expect like us to be there during that time that they are doing their specific prayer kind of thing, that
Yeah.
thing. But I also had to choose and be like, no, I'm not coming for that. Sorry. So it is. But I do believe that what God will bring later will be a greater reward as to
Yes.
what we have to sacrifice now. Because it is, like I said, it is picking up your cross and walking. It really
Yes.
is. That's what I can say.
Wow.
It's not easy, but find one
Mm.
thing. And what is the one thing you want to achieve the most? What's more important with you? And that would
Yeah.
have to be following Jesus. If you feel this
Wow. That's fantastic, Tash. Sure. Thank you so much. I believe it's going to be very helpful for some people that watch this. And a question that I wanted to ask, and maybe we'll begin to wrap up with this question, is how your faith has affected you. Maybe firstly as a wife, in your marriage and your
Mhm.
dynamics there, and also then as a mom, with two
Mhm.
small kids, awesome fiery kids. How has your faith and your relationship with Jesus, maybe in a few words, it'll be hard to explain completely, but maybe in a few words, how has that helped you, guided you in your marriage and then also in your parenting?
Mhm. Okay, so if I can give when you talk about marriage and the faith and God's word, it's important that it says, as a wife, you need to submit to your husband. I'll just share a quick story that when we moved to Cape Town, when we visited
Yeah.
then View Church, we visited View Church, and it was like, okay. Jonathan walked in and he loved it. He never looked back and he was settled. And Simbai was like, yeah, I like it. And I was like, that's okay, but let's visit other places. Let's see what
Yes.
they. I've in my previous church. I've been there for 16 years, and I loved it,
Yes.
and it was amazing. So okay, let's see. And somebody was like, no, you can go look, but we're not going anywhere. We staying here. And I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, no,
Wow.
we staying here. And in that moment, it was okay. I need to submit. He is the leader, and I wouldn't know that submission if I wasn't aware of God's word, of his teaching in my life. I would have thought that he would have gone his separate way, I would have gone my separate way. But it's through that submission of him that is now in our marriage, in our life, in being here. It's been fruitful. It really, really
Yeah.
has been. Never seen God's hand work so much than I ever seen it before. In being a mom, the just getting to do what I need to do, and just now that I'm in a new season where I get to be at home with them all the time. Well, I'll be a stay-at-home mom, and that's a blessing in itself as well that God has brought to us. That I'm able to pray for them more consciously, not a just quick, okay, you out the door, I'm out the door, we go. It's spending more time thinking of them, thinking what their needs are, and meeting them. And also knowing how to parent better. What does the Bible say about parenting? How do we do this so that we all grow up as a family unit that's
Good.
going to walk in this faith. And also, early on is to teach, for me, is to say that the kids must know that we don't just do church, it is life. This Christianity is our life. And how do we follow Jesus is by going to church. And so we make those things a priority in our lives. They know that, as small as they are, they know the priorities come Sunday. They know the priorities come Thursday when it's life group. And that's what it's done for me, is to
Wow.
prioritize and bring the covering of Jesus over my family a little bit more than what it was before.
That's fantastic, man. And you and Simbai are such, awesome people, and we love your kids as well. Yeah, you're just an amazing family, and you set such a great example. And maybe even just kind of one last question. Maybe this is a bit more, personal to you. But with 2023 ahead, what are you looking forward to in the year? What are you maybe trusting God for? It doesn't have to be super personal because this is going on YouTube, but if there was something that you're thinking about, or even trusting God for, or even praying about, yeah, we'd love to hear what that is.
I think greater unity as a family unit between the four of us,
Wow.
and bringing this walk closer to Jesus, going deeper into, yeah, being more plugged in, being more intentional on how we are growing, how we want to grow as a married couple,
Yeah.
grow with each other. We've been more intentional. We want to be more intentional about that. We started off this year by writing a vision for the family, and
Amazing.
we just every now and then we get a chance. We're going to review it. We've set goals for ourselves, but really being intentional about spending time with family,
Yes.
and with God as well.
Yes. That's
What I
fantastic. Thank you so much, Tash. Yo, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and just hearing a little bit of your story. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes, yes, that's been good.
Oh man,
Start memory
thank you so
lane.
much. Yeah, thank you, Tash, and also thank you to everybody who's maybe watching this video. We really hope that it has encouraged you. And again, your story is powerful. Your testimony is powerful. It is unique to you. The experiences that have kind of led you to be the person you are today. And Scripture teaches so clearly that when we share our testimony, there is power and encouragement that comes along with it. So we hope that with this testimony, you are encouraged to share yours in whatever moment or environment that you find yourself in. There is power in that. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next episode.